Alright, hello everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at a common but very simple interview question. Yesterday we did a more complex problem. However, this one, so today I decided to switch it up and choose a simpler question because this question is a very common interview question. It's more focused on the type of syntax and understanding of how loops and everything work. So let's take a look at the question and what it's asking for. The question is called FizzBuzz. Write a program that prints the numbers from 1 to n. But for multiples of 3, print the word fizz instead of the number. For multiples of 5, print buzz. For numbers which are multiples of both 3 and 5, print FizzBuzz. Alright? So, you can ignore this real quick. This is just something where I copy pasted. So for example, if the input is 15, what we want to do is we have to output a list of all the numbers, and then the first number is going to be 1, 2, they could be strings or they could be integers. That doesn't really matter. But the first, honestly, we'll probably keep them all as strings because it would be more, it would be better to do all strings other than having integers and then sometime adding a string. That would be kind of awkward. So we're printing out all the strings of the numbers, so 1, 2, but instead of 3, we print out fizz because 3 is divisible by 3, obviously. 5, we print out buzz. 6, we also print out fizz because 6 is a multiple of 3. 10 is a multiple of 5, so we print out buzz. 9 is also a multiple of 3, so we print out fizz. And then FizzBuzz is 15 because it's a multiple of both 3 and 5. Alright? So, now how do we go about approaching it? Now, obviously, we are going to be using the modulus operator. If you guys don't know, we used this one operator before in a previous problem. Actually, remember the digits problem? That problem we used the modulus operator because we wanted to find the remainder. But what we can do is using that modulus operator, we know that, for example, if we have the number 6% 3, we know that said the remainder is going to be 0 because not equals to, we know that this statement is a true statement. The reason being 6 divided by 3 is 2, and there's no remainder remaining, so we know that the value is 0. If we did 6 for 5 instead, the remainder would have to be 1. If you guys know, 6 divided by 5 would be 1, and then 1 extra digit remaining. So we're going to use the modulus operator and continuously check to see if it's a modulus of 0, and that means it would be a multiple of 3. However, we also need to do that for 5, and we also need to do that for 15. Why 15? Because we know that the multiples of both 3 and 5 are going to be multiples of 15. That there cannot be a multiple of both 3 and 5 that is not a multiple of 15, because that's just how well, math works. But it's more easy to see by completing out the pattern. After 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, all of those numbers, they aren't both a multiple of 3 and 5, but the next multiple is 30. 30 is a multiple of 15, which is also a multiple of 3 and 5. So now let's take a look at just writing the code for this. So we're gonna call it FizzBuzz, obviously. FizzBuzz. We're going to have an input, let's say n. Now we want the output to be this list of strings. So we're going to be putting result is equal to this. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be basically looping through uh, 0 to n, but what we're going to be doing instead is we're going to be doing for I in range of 1 to n plus 1. You know how usually we loop through the length of the list, and usually we'd say the length of result, or the or just like for I in range of n. However, that would cause the I value to start at 0. But instead, what we want to do is, since we want to print out the values itself starting from 1, we're going to be starting at 1, but the ending value can't be n, because that would be an incorrect number of values. So we're going to be incrementing from 1 to n plus 1 so that we get the full range. Because, for example, this would essentially be printing out, if n was 5, for example, if this was 5, this would be printing out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, not printing out, but I would be the values of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. This is basic Python syntax for how for loops work. Now, we're going to start off with, instead of tackling 3 and 5, what we actually want to do is we want to tackle the 15 first. Why? Because if we do the 3 first, if we write the first condition of if I% 3 is equal to 0, what you might realize is that it would go for this for 3, and it would go for this, work fine for 6, work fine for 9, and then keep going. But when we see the value of 15, it's also going to do this. But we don't want, we're going to be result.append FizzBuzz, because that's what we need to do. If we do, for 3, we would want it to be fizz, right? However, the problem is if we're doing this, then when we hit the value of 15, I is 15, it will immediately go into this calculation and append fizz for 15. But instead we want it to be FizzBuzz. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to be starting with 15, and then the next condition, we're going to be starting with the 15 condition, this last condition, and then the next condition, elif, we're going to be having as 3. Or we could have it as 5, either one works. We could go backwards, but the important thing is that we tackle this last condition first, because this last condition, we want to prioritize that. If it is a multiple of both 3 and 5, we want to address that first instead of tackling it towards the end, in which case either one of these could overwrite the FizzBuzz, which we want. So now, if it's a multiple of 15, which is both 3 and 5, we append FizzBuzz. If it's just 3, is equal to 0. If the remainder is 0, which means it's a multiple of 3, then we want results dot append fizz. Elif I%5 is equal to 0, result dot append buzz, because that is the condition for 5. So if it's a multiple of 15, we do FizzBuzz, multiple of 3, fizz, and if it's a multiple of 5, buzz. And it's very important that you address these 3 conditions first. You can interchange 3 and 5. Like, it doesn't matter if this is before this one, it would result in the same thing, because these are just individually, if it's just 3 or just 5. But if it goes to both, what is important is that this is the first condition that you have in this problem, because otherwise one of these two would overwrite this. And the final else condition is that if it's not a multiple of 3 and it's not a multiple of 5, it's a multiple of neither, we just want to print out the number itself. So we're going to be result.append basically I, but not just I. We want to make it a string of I, because the list is just going to be a string. So instead of just appending I, what we would do is we'd append string of I, like that. So in Python, you can simply create an integer variable into a string by using this str command, str function, I mean. And that's basically it. So pretty simple code there. And all we need to do at the end is return the result. So now if we get the output of, we can test this code, print out FizzBuzz of 15, we should get a list exactly similar to the one we just had up here. And there we go. We get the exact same thing of 1, 2 fizz, 4 buzz, fizz 7, 8 fizz, buzz 11, fizz 13, 14, fizz buzz. So yeah, that's essentially this code working in action. Obviously you can do any additional number. The time complexity is just going to be n, because it's just essentially a single loop that is looping through and checking these conditions. And yeah, there's not really any additional space complexity, since you're just adding it all into a list and returning out the list. So yeah, that's, well, technically that would, yeah, that's essentially how this problem works. And if you guys, hopefully this was a pretty straightforward question, compared to yesterday instead. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one, and see ya.